Hi, I'm Steve Pond from TheWrap. We are here sort of at the Sundance Film Festival, or at least at our virtual Sundance Film Festival studio. And I'm delighted to welcome Questlove, the director of Summer of Soul. Welcome.
Thank you.
Must be odd to be at Sundance without leaving your home.
Yeah, I was going to say that ever since 2000, I'll say that I've attended maybe somewhere between 13 to 15 Sundances, either in the capacity of the Roots playing or maybe a film or two that I co-produced, indie films or those sort of things. But never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I'd come there and debut this film with my own, like come to this festival with my own film. So surprises abound in 2020, 2021. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, not only are you premiering, but your film showed on opening night, which the opening night music film, that's a big slot.
I've heard that's very impressive. Yes, I was just happy to be allowed to play some reindeer games. I didn't realize that opening the festival was that is indeed a big deal, and I'm grateful for it.
Right. So congratulations on the film. I mean, it's just a terrific film. I mean, it's based on footage from the Harlem Cultural Festival in 1969. So how did you learn about the festival and about the footage?
Well, initially, my two producers, David Dinnerstein and Robert Foyland, they had this footage kind of in the pocket for some time, and they kind of gauged my interest to see, was this something that I'd be into? And immediately I was like, well, wait a minute. What are you talking about? A Harlem Cultural Festival? Like, I know every important music gathering. At least I thought I did, because I'd like to think of myself as somewhere between a savant and a sage of music history. How come I never heard of this thing? And then they started saying the lineup, and I'm like, you're trying to tell me that there was a time in 1969 where there was a recorded, documented concert with Stevie Wonder, Silent Family Stone, the Staple Singers, and Nina Simone, and about 20 other artists of note, B.B. King, and you're trying to tell me that there was a concert and I didn't hear a peep about it. I mean, there are a lot of things that I've heard about, but I at least heard a peep about it. And I couldn't believe it. So instantly my ego was bruised, because I was like, wait a minute, I should know about this. I know about all these things. So that got my curiosity. That was the bait. And then when they came back to show me the footage, I was like, there's no way possible you're trying to tell me that this didn't, at least a rumor of it getting out, or that sort of thing. Sure enough, it's been sitting in a basement for 50 years. And, in the very beginning, I felt somewhat apprehensive, only because it's like, this is my first time driving, my first time at the wheel. Like, imagine being 16-year-old and then like you're given an 18-wheeler as your, and you got to drive to California. Like, you're moving your stuff 3,000 miles across the country. That's the fear that I had. But then suddenly the importance of the festival overcame my fear. And, it's just logical. Like, all I do is tell stories, like in the music I create. And, at the time I was teaching at NYU as a professor. I have my podcast. Like, I do these long gargantuan Instagram posts about the history of music. So I felt that this was just the next logical step in my life as a griot, a storyteller.
Had you been thinking about directing a documentary or making your own films?
I'm that guy that always sort of imagines or plants the seed of, someone should really do this. Like my whole life is about, man, it'd be really cool if someone did a song in this type of meter. And then there's always someone that's like, well, why don't you be that person that does that thing? And I was like, oh yeah. And then I was the guy like, yo, man, I wish somebody would write a book about the creative process, da 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 da. And then someone says, well, why don't you be that guy? And that's basically how my life has been. So I guess the lesson that I'm learning in the past 10 years of my life is that, I literally have to be the paradigm shift and the change that I fantasize about. And this is a great example of that. So, making documentaries on music, like I would love nothing better. Because even when I was teaching at NYU, the frustration was just killing me that I couldn't find, these special clips of, these performances and whatnot. So I would have to like make these little sizzle reels on YouTube and call up record labels to get like, demo sketches of this particular song, or, ask for the master reels so I can break it down for my class. So yeah, I guess this is me being the change that I wish for.
I mean, I imagine when you get this footage of, a festival that goes over 6 weekends and has all of these people, I mean, you could just do a straight concert movie and only scratch the surface.
Yeah.
And this is more than that, but is that
that was my initial intent. I'll say the curator in me, probably a week after I made the decision to do this, I treated it like I do the Roots Picnic Festival, or oftentimes the Roots will do like these jam sessions where we have to back up like 12 or 13 artists. And then I have to figure out, okay, well, this is a slow song. And everything I do in my life, I do that whole establishing, rising, climax, falling action, and resolution, like the end. I treat everything sort of in that spectrum. And I'll say that initially, I mean, there was about 45 hours of footage. And so I had to sit there, and I probably watched all 45 hours of that, maybe somewhere between 5 to 7 times each. So yeah, it was like a good 4 months of just watching the raw footage and figuring out. I knew that I wanted a beginning that was unexpected, and I knew I wanted an ending so memorable that it made you feel invigorated. And I knew that there had to be a climax point that just gave you the chills. And so in the Stevie Wonder performance, seeing that drum solo, that was a side of Stevie Wonder I never knew existed ever. I mean, I've seen a lot of Stevie Wonder concerts, and I've not seen him sort of demonstrate his genius on all these instruments. So to see Stevie Wonder just do a straight up drum solo was something that I figured that like music nerds like myself would be excited about. So I was like, that's my beginning. It instantly called me as the beginning. As far as my ending, Nina Simone's every performance that Nina Simone has given on record between 1969 and 1979 is just some of the most gut-wrenching, just energetic, majestical performances I've ever seen. So I knew that somewhere in her performance that was uplifting and powerful. And for me, probably the best performance that really just captured you and held you was the sort of the passing of the baton between Mavis Staples and Mahalia Jackson. Just hearing them sing "My Precious Lord," and the thing that really made it special was that I knew that was going to go there, but at the time when we interviewed Jesse Jackson, I didn't know that he was going to tell me that story of like the last 15 minutes of Martin Luther King's life and how that particular song meant something to him. You know, it was Jesse Jackson that explained that Benjamin Branch, the band leader of the Operation Breadbasket, was the last person that Martin Luther King spoke to before he was assassinated. And the way that he told that story, it just gave you chills and goosebumps. And it's just the detail for which he told it. You know, I actually tweeted out last week that it's hard for me to imagine that 10 minutes right before he got assassinated, Martin Luther King and Andrew Jackson and Jesse Jackson, I'm sorry, Andrew Young, Ralph Abernathy, and Jesse Jackson, they were having a pillow fight. They were like ranking and teasing each other about their ties, and then Andrew Young threw a pillow, and then Martin they were having a pillow fight. Like they were having the time of their lives just laughing. And then 10 minutes later, Martin's life is over. And so just the way that he told that story, like I knew that was the moment we were looking for. Yeah, but there are so many performances that had to go on the cutting room floor that I wish I could have included. So, I mean, you at least know that we have enough footage for, you know, God willing, maybe a Criterion Collection 10th anniversary or a 25th anniversary. So there's so many embarrassments of riches that we have.
No, don't wait 10 or 25 years. We've already waited 50 to see this stuff. Come on, you got to show us some more.
Well, I have to let, you know, we have to let this sink in. I mean, if this alone is moving people, we have to let that sink in, because, you know, it could just get numbing. I mean, the gospel section alone is like damn near a 2-hour extravaganza just on the art of really powerful, moving gospel music. So much there. Yeah, I can't wait to figure out how we remix that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the performance of Precious Lord by Mavis and Mahalia, you know, is certainly one of those moments, and everything Nina Simone does is another, where you're really bringing together the music with the social and political context, which obviously is a major part of this film. I mean, was that something that came along later, that you wanted to, you know, back off the music sometimes, give that context and turn it into more than just a concert film?
Well, you know, it wasn't lost on us at all that something more than just a concert film was happening. And, you know, as I will say that this documentary basically wrote itself, and we were just the channeling source, the conduit for which, for which the world receives this message. And, you know, what we initially learned was that this festival was basically created as a means to just keep people from expressing rage and anger of where we wound up as a people in 1969. There were, you know, Martin Luther King was gone, Malcolm X was gone, the Kennedy brothers were assassinated, and, you know, it was kind of like a moment where, like, there was no Moses, there was no leader, and all of America was basically burning in anger. Some cities got lucky, like, of course, you know, James Brown did something similar in Boston the night that Martin Luther King died, and him being on PBS to do a 3-hour show kept people inside and not rioting in the streets. And so this concert was basically there for the entire summer of 1969 just to keep spirits high. And it was a high point in a time of change and in a time of lows for people. And it really, the irony was not lost on us that 50 years later we were creating this film in the exact same environment. And that's the thing. It was like once we realized that, like, yo, the 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 circumstances that were at hand in 1969 really is happening 50 years later in 2019. And we were trying to figure out, like, how do we parallel that. And at first it was like, well, do we make a movie about today's contemporary times and just use the footage in the past as sort of a, and it wasn't that. It was, we just felt that people would automatically, we felt that our audience would be smart enough to make the comparison and to know that, oh, okay, so there were protests, and there was there were all these issues that we speak of now were still happening. So this movie basically just wrote itself.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I also feel like you got these people at such pivotal moments. I mean, it's like Sly's next step was there's a riot going on. Stevie Wonder's next step was Music of My Mind and Talking Book. And, the Staple Singers started making, Respect Yourself and pop things like that. It's like this was a moment where there was something really flowering.
Yeah, it's 1969 was definitely a Mason-Dixon line for everyone, a bridge, if you will, to cross to a whole nother world. And so Stevie is at a point where, he's no longer little Stevie Wonder, and he's about to go through this magical genius phase that will, the Beatles broke up in 69. And I felt that Stevie Wonder picked up the baton for the 70s, that magic that the Beatles had with their canon of the 60s. I felt that was Stevie Wonder, in my opinion. And the same for Nina Simone, finding a more political voice in her work. The same for there's a lot of like free jazz moments. The same for Max Roach using instead of just playing bebop, making protest music. The same for like the Staple Singers doing so-called secular, even with gospel music. Like you see the dividing line between traditional civil rights gospel music and the big deal of Oh Happy Day with Edwin Hawkins and the Hawkins Singers is just the fact that should this music be danceable? Like, is this a sin against God to sound like and there was a lot of gospel songs. There's one song that we had to put on the editing floor, Claire Walker, where she remade James Brown's I'm Black and I'm Proud, like I love Jesus and I'm proud. Like, gospel acts would often take secular songs and reconfigure them in sort of a gospel context. And it was so much. And the comedy, that's one of the, you got to let some kids go. And so a lot of the comedy, I know that we have Pickmeat Markham's, one of his only complete documented performances. And Pickmeat Markham has played the Apollo Theater probably more than any artist has ever played an art, but none of his stuff is documented on that level. And besides the stuff that he did on Laugh-In, like Here Comes the Judge and those little skits, you never got to see why he was so magical, during that period of his comedy in the 50s and 60s. So much had to go on the floor, but that was basically just the dividing line between the civil rights period of Martin Luther King and the revolutionary power period of the Black Panthers. 69 was that period.
Yeah. Well, I could keep asking about this, and I know you could keep talking about it, but I think we probably need to wrap up now. But thanks for talking, and it's just a terrific film. So congratulations.
I'm just happy to be the person chosen to bring it to the people, and man, I'm very grateful. I'm so amazed. Thank you.